आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलं श्रीराघवं दशरथात्मजमप्रमेयं सीतापतिं रघुनाथमयरत्नदीपम् आजानुबाहुम् अरविन्दतडायताक्षं रामं निशाचर विनाशकरं नमामि वैदेही सहितं सुरद्रुमतले हैमे महामण्डपे मध्ये पुष्पकवासने मणिमये वीरासने सुस्थितम् अग्रे वाचगतिप्रभञ्जनसुते तत्त्वं मुनिभ्यः परं व्याख्यान्तं वरदादिभिः परिव्रतं रामं भजे श्यामलं सौरमण्डलमध्यस्थं शाम्भं संसारवेदजं नीलग्रीवं विरूपाक्षं नमामि शुभमव्ययम् आञ्जनेयमतिपाटलाननं काञ्चनाद्रिकमनीयविग्रहं पारिजाततरमूलवासिनं भावयामि पवमाननन्दनं यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र गतमस्तकाञ्जलिं बाष्पवारि परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकम् ॐ अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः என்னுயிர்தந்தளித்தவரை சரணம் புக்கு யாரடைவேன் அவர் குருக்கள் நிறை வணங்கி பின்னருளால் பெரும்போதூர் வந்தவள்ளல் பெரிய நம்பி ஆள வந்தார் வணக்கால் நம்பி நன்னுரையை அவர் குறைத்த உய்யக் கொண்டார் நாதமுனி சடகோபன் சேனநாதன் இன்னமுதத் திருமகள் இன்று இவர்களை முன்னிட்டு பெருமான் திருவடிகள் அடைகின்றேனே. I welcome you all to this session. When we initially started to think about this particular event, we had different dates, we had different timings picked out. As it always happens, Bhagavan has his own ways of doing things. Today is a very, very auspicious day. Most of you probably know why Good Friday is outside of us. Today happens to be the day when Mahalakshmi Tayar took the avataram, Avirbhava. Today is Panguni Uttram. And Panguni Uttram has several significance. First of all, like I said, from the Kshiravdi, when Devatas and Asuras, when they churned that milky ocean, lots of things came. But as Alvar says, he actually got the biggest jewelry, the biggest amritam that came out of the Kshiravdi, and that is Mahalakshmi Tayar. When her Avirbhavam actually got done, she went straight and sat on Bhagavan's Tirumad. From that day on, she was constantly there. So it's a very, very auspicious day today. That's number one. Number two, people who have had the opportunity to go to Sri Rangam, today is the day when Tayar and Perumal Seerthi happens. Throughout the night, they do Thirumanjiram for Tayar and Perumal, and this is the only day when Ranganayaki Tayar and Ranganayaki Perumal, they get married, and their Seerthi day is today. That's another significance. More importantly, for the subject matter we have picked out, Sita Pirati and Rama Piran got married today. Panguni Uttram day, Tayar's birthday is gift. And both of them got married. So in many ways, today is very, very significant day. And actually in Balalayam, we used to, Panguni Uttram day, we always used to have Perumal Tayar Kalyanam. But as it happens, instead of that, we are doing this. So it's all a good thing, right? Initially, when we started thinking about this particular program, we were thinking, what's the right way to go about it? We all do Sundara Kandam, and I'm sure many of you have heard Sundara Kandam rendered by Pravachanams of Sundara Kandam, rendered by many Vidwans. And each of those have different flavor. They come at it from different angles. One of the things we wanted to do was, I wanted to cater this thing to the audience, to the kids more mostly. As you all know, we do have lots of kids in Pragya. And because of that, they are learning bits and pieces of lots of good things. But an event like this hopefully would tie it all together. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular program. Ramayanam is such a great kavyam. It is it is actually termed as Itihasa Sreshtam. If there was any yardstick for any work that is done by so many acharyas have done so many works, right? You take Swami Desikan, he's created 108 works on various works, Tamil Prabandhams, Sanskrita Prabandhams, Stotrams, and so on and so forth. Mahamanigal has created so many. Many of our Purvacharyas have created so many. Alvargal, you don't have to say, Prabandham. So all these things are there. But when you really have to evaluate any grantham written by somebody, what do they look at? What's your yardstick? How do you measure it? They always compare it with Ramayana. And that is very significant. And it is significant because I'll get to that in a bit. It is very significant, and there is a reason why that is the case. It is called Adi Kavyam for a very good reason. So, when I started thinking about it, that's how I'm going to access it. I'm trying to go through Sundara Kandam. The story part, I think most of you already know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to touch upon what are the important pieces, what do you learn from that, why is those portions important. That's how we access it. Go through this, the entire Sundara Kandam. As it happens, the whole thing starts with a person by the name of Ratnakar. Ratnakar is a person, he's a dacoit. He's a thief. He's a plunderer. All he keeps doing is he's out there by Tamasa Nadi, and lots of people that go by, he would stop them. He would take all the money, jewelry, wealth, and all that stuff, and then he would take it home and give it to his people, and they used to share it. And that's how he used to live. He was pretty much a dacoit in that area. People were scared to go anywhere around him. So this used to happen for a long time, and one day, Narada came by, and this is all Bhagavad Sankalpam. There are so many things that we go through. Why did Bhagavan pick Arjuna for delivering Gita? Nobody knows. Why did Bhagavan pick certain people to do certain things? Nobody knows. Why did he pick Nammarwan to deliver the Tiruvayvari? Nobody knows. But that's his sankalpam. So here too, Narada comes by, and he does the same thing. This Ratnakar does the same thing. He just stops him and says, "Stop, give me all your wealth." Narada didn't have a whole lot of wealth. He said, "I'll give you whatever I got, but before I give you anything, do you realize that you're accumulating so much problems? Do you really need that?" Because yeah, I am, but you know what? I'm also taking all these things and I'm helping my people. They share all my wealth, and they share all my things. They'll also share my power. He says, just go find out. They really would do that or not. So Ratnakar was very, very sure that that actually is going to happen. So he goes. He goes to his family and his people. It's like Robin Hood, right? He's asking them, are you going to do this? Everybody out there says, we're happy that you're providing us all these food and jewelry and money and everything. But, when it comes to sharing the power, we're not going to do that. That's your duty. You're doing your job. How you do it, that's your problem. We're not going to share everything with you. Any of your problems with you. So they immediately, Ratnakar goes, oh, there's a problem here. He comes running to Narada. Narada goes, well, I knew that. That's why I asked you to make sure that that's the case. So he says, okay, Narada Maharishi, please help me. How do I get myself absorbed out of this? How do I get out of this? He goes, there are two things you can do. First of all, you have to completely believe in me And second, I will teach you something. You blindly keep chanting that. And you will be absorbed on all the poems and things will be good for you. But because Ratnakar was he had accumulated so much power and such a bad person at the time, Narada did not want to give him the Narayana mantram or the typical Ashtakshari mantram or any other mantram that our acharyas give us. Instead, he said, sit down, I'll give you 2 syllables. Keep repeating those 2 syllables. He goes, Ma, Ra. And as you all know, Rama is the Taraka mantra. He could have given Rama. Valmiki, we'll get to that, we'll get to why it is the case, but he goes Mara. So he keep repeating that. So he keeps repeating. So you guys remember this, okay? This will be a question in Pragya. He goes repeating Mara, 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 Mara. Automatically it becomes Rama, Rama, Rama. Right? And as he keeps chanting it, the first Rama, Rama that came out, all his poems, everything gone. As you all know, in Varanasi, somebody is sitting there chanting and making that place holy. And he is chanting Rama, 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 right? Who is that? Lord Shiva does it, right? There you go. Whoever answered that is correct answer. Very good. So it's the same concept. It's the same concept, right? Here, Ratnakar is chanting Rama, 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 Rama. It becomes Rama, 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 Rama. The very first Rama he chanted all the things were gone, but he was so engrossed in the beauty in the Ramanama itself. He stood effortlessly. He stood there, didn't move at all for ages. Not 1 year, not 2 years, for ages. For yugams he did not move. Can you guys imagine? We can't even sit straight. You do this, we do this. You can't even sit straight. But Ratnakar, who just got the Diksha from who? Narada, sat down and kept chanting this. And he got lost in it so much that Bhumi Taya, she engulfed him in ant hill, basically. You know ant hill? Yeah. Ant hill. So he was covered by ant hill. Once that got done, if you have to imagine, right? If a lady is lying down and and she's carrying a baby, how her stomach would be. It was like that. And when you look at from outside, top, right? It was like the Mata is sitting and lying down, and her belly is all swollen, and that's where this person was, right? So years go by. All of a sudden, Brahma is very happy with this Jammu. He needs to come because there are things that need to happen. And he comes and he wakes this Ratnakar out of that anthill. And because he comes out of the anthill, in Sanskrit, anthill is also referred to as Valmikam. And because he came from the anthill, he is called Valmiki. It is very similar to what you guys have learned, right? Vasudeva's son, Vasudeva. Janaka Maharaja's daughter, Janaki. The same concept, right? Valmikam, he came from Valmikam, therefore he's called Valmiki. So from that day on, the Ratnakar ended, a new birth came for this person, and now from this point on, he was called Valmiki. This Valmiki Maharishi, he became Maharishi, right? So much of Ramanama he has chanted. He has chanted more Ramanama than even Hanuman, because he precedes Hanuman, and both of them are still chanting. So now you can do a counting. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, after that occurred, Valmiki Maharishi, he goes to his ashram. When he goes to his ashram, he actually is encountered by Brahmadeva. And what does Brahma do there? He's basically there, sitting there. He's basically saying, from today on, I'm going to give you a varam. He actually gives him a varam. He keeps Saraswati in his tongue, and because of that, you will know about Ramayana 100%. Everything that happened, whether it was, whether anybody else saw that or not, whatever occurred would play right in front of him, so you can use that to write Ramayana. Okay, and we'll get to that in a second. And that was the varam that Valmiki got. And in fact, it was the purpose of Valmiki's birth. So Valmiki's rebirth occurred because of this, right? For him to be able to write this Mahakavya. So, as you all know, there are 18 Puranas and 2 Itihasas. Mahabharatam and Ramayana. Ramayana is the Itihasa Sreshtam. Okay? As as you probably have already known, Ramayana is obviously written in Treta, right? The significance of this is it goes Veda Vedye Pare Pumsi Jate Dasaratatmaje Veda Prache Dasadasit Sakshat Ramayana. Veda Vedye Veda, you all know Vedam, right? We all are Vaidikas, meaning because we follow Vedam, we are all Vaidikas. And the Vedas point us to somebody. Through Vedas, the idea is through Vedas we can understand somebody. He is called Veda Vedyan. So through Vedas you get to know somebody, that is Vedyan. So Veda Vedyan is Bhagavan. Veda Vedye Pare Pumsi Jate Dasaratatmaje. He was born to Dasharatha, so he's Rama, right? So Veda Vedyan Srimad Narayana came and born as Sri Rama. Then the next line says Veda Prache Dasadasit Sakshat Ramayana. If he did that, Veda Mata took an avataram too. And what did she do? Sakshat Ramayana. She actually became Ramayana. So if you think about it, everything that is in Vedam, therefore, is also there in Ramayana. And therefore, vice versa, right? So you have to be, if you are in any field, that's of interest to you. Some people are more scientifically oriented. Some people are, they like warfare. Some people are into something else, like music. Some people are into Jyotisha Shastra. Some people are into, philosophy. Some people are into Vedic Matam. You look at all these things, everyone has something to learn from this. Even right from the birth of Rama was not born nowhere in the in Ramayana you'll find that Rama was born to Dasharatha. Even we call him Dasarathi because he was a son, adopted son, right? Kind of. Realistically speaking, he came out of the payasam was given to the the kheer was given to the 4 wives, right? And they drank, and from that Rama came about, and all the other 4 brothers came about. In fact, Valmiki's Anubhavam, Kritva Atmanam Chaturvidam, Bhagavan, he divided himself into 4 parts. All of them are Srimad Narayana's avataram, while Rama was Paripurna avataram, the other one had few parts of it. So, we can go back and forth on it. The point is, Rama, how was he born? Right from there, if somebody is interested in doing research, go do it. You'll find a lot of things. If somebody is into warfare, the amount of warfare description in Ramayana, amazing. Engineering, facts. If you want to find out, go back and find out how they built that bridge between Sri Lanka and India. There are so many things. Communication. If you want to know about communication, think about the amount of people they were able to get out there, Vanarams, they were able to get out there between India and Sri Lanka through the bridge that they built in a matter of less than a month. What kind of communication they would have had? In fact, they say that after Ravana was already killed, he was already gone, right? Ravana Samharam was got done, Rama's Vijay Raghava. Now, when they were looking at the bridge, the Vanarams are still coming. Those guys are still coming because that's the way. They had planning going on in such a way that, one battalion dies, another one comes, another one. They had this process going so very well. Think about it. Nowadays, we got all kinds of, you have internet, you have phone, you have cell phone, you have Twitter, you have this, you have that. You do all things. They had none of that. And they were all vanarams, monkeys, and all kinds of animals, not just vanaram. Right? Vanaram is a mukyamana, important ones are vanarams, but you had balus, you had all kinds of the animals coming and helping. How did they communicate? So right from there, if you want to do some research, you can do that. So every person has something to go and learn from Ramayana, which is why I really wanted to bring this up. So by Vaishnava tradition, we always look at three things: Prabandha Vailakshinyam, Vishaya Vailakshinyam, and Kartru Vailakshinyam. So the Kartru Vailakshinyam is we went through what Valmiki Sarabha, the person who actually created the artifact, created the Itihasam, right? So that's Valmiki. I'll just briefly touch upon Valmiki, and I'm not going to go too much into him. The second one is about Ramayana itself, which is the Prabandha Vailakshinyam, or we can talk about the Grantha, right? Ekaikam aksharam proktam mahapatakanasanam. Really, what that means is every aksharam in Ramayana, because it is Veda, right? We just went through that. It is Vedam's translation. So Ekaikam aksharam proktam mahapatakanasanam. So even if you were to utter one word of it, one letter of it, it will take away all your sins. That's the importance of Ramayana. That's the Mahatmyam of Ramayana. Now if you go into a little bit more, when Valmiki tried to write this Kavyam, Mahakavyam, he had, he didn't know what to name it. Because you can name, when you look at what, this is an entire charitram of somebody, when you're writing this, what can you name it? Many of you are familiar with it. In our tradition, we do Jatakaranam, Namakaranam, we do all that thing for kids, right? In this case, if you have to think about it, Veda Mata took the avataram of Ramayana, we talked about. So, a similar thing had ever happened, right? Namakaranam occurred. That's how the names of Ramayana came. And if you know, in our tradition, we actually keep 3 names, right? We do, right? And we do 3 names, and then we do this, cradle ceremony, and we introduce the kid to everybody else in the world, right? That's what we do. Same thing happened to Ramayana too. After the Kavyam was completed, Valmiki took the pain to teach it to Lavakusha. And Lavakusha, they went to Ramayana, the entire darbar full of people, entire Ayodhya was assembled there. In front of all of them, they displayed Ramayana, and they actually sang and displayed Ramayana. So it's like the Jatakaranam and the Namakaranam that happens in all our lives, right? So that's how Ramayana was born. So there were 3 names given to it. First name was Ramayana. And it was given because Valmiki was very careful in picking the names. It was not just given like that. It was given from Sita's perspective. And why was it from Sita's perspective? When Valmiki was writing this thing down, every aksharam that he was writing, everything that he was doing, Sita Devi was there, sitting right there, listening to it. Because she was in his ashram when he was writing this. And as he was teaching to the kids also, she's been listening to it. So when the time was ready, she was in such, and she was so awestruck about the perfection, the beauty of Ramayana. She actually gave it the name Ramayana. So Sita Devi gave the name Ramayana to Ramayana. So that was her perspective. The second thing was, that was the first name, right? So Valmiki kept it in his mind. The second thing that occurred was, as Ramayana was being displayed, as I said, right? Like we do the Jatakaranam, Namakaranam, the kids are singing in front of a big audience. They were singing so melodiously, everybody stood still. They didn't move. They all were looking at these kids, beautiful kids singing, and the Ganamridam was such that they didn't want to do anything else. They were just looking at it. In a darbar, typically the king sits on top and everybody else is around them on the floor. The moment king gets up and goes away, the darbar is done. Everybody has to go away from them. In this particular case, everybody was so engrossed in these kids singing, nobody even saw that Rama actually got up from where he was in his darbar. He actually came down, Simhasanam, he came down and sat with everybody else to enjoy. He wanted to enjoy the Ramayana Pravachanam being done by these two kids, not sitting alone by himself, but with everybody else. That is an important Sri Vaishnava tradition. We always, enjoy everything together. So Rama showed us. Not only that, there is also second thing that he did, which was because he was so close to Tayar, he wanted to sit on the ground because that gave him the feel that he was closer to her. Second. Third, every time Ramayana Pravachanam occurs, you have to sit down on the ground. I mean, I'm not asking you to do it. That's the tradition. That's how it is done. If you go to India, that's how people do it. Didn't meet it, I guess. So he showed the ways of doing that. Nobody saw but Valmiki. Valmiki was actually trying to see, is Rama liking this? What is his expression? When these kids are saying this phrase, what is he thinking? So he was constantly looking at him. And because of that, and Rama's words are Sitaya's Charitam Mahat. So he goes, Sita or Charitam. So he takes that phrase, calls it Sitaya's Charitam Mahat. That is the second name he gives to Ramayana. That is the third name. And third name is, this is very selfish behavior. When Ravana was so powerful, he was all over the place. He was just creating trouble to everybody, right? So Devatas, they didn't know what to do. They were really, helpless, right? They were not able to do any of their stuff, And so they actually came to Lord Srimad Narayana and said, please help us, get out of this problem. And so Bhagavan gave them one, I'll come and help. And that one is called Paulastya Vadam. So because of that, he gave them the varam that I will samhara matra the Pulastya Maharishi. Therefore, Paulus, their entire flock of all those asuras, they were all Paulastya. In fact, they were all very well learned people. Ravana, who is Navavyakarana Pandita? Hanuman. You know who is another Navavyakarana Pandita? That is Ravana. Adhe madri, there is Ashtasiddhi. Ravana knew all Ashtasiddhi. So, if you were to say match, if there was any, leaving Lord Srimad Narayana outside of this, there was no match for Ravana. No match. That's why he had this thing, who's going to kill me? Right? That's why he had that feeling. Yes, he was such a Pandita. He went to, Rudra Amsam is actually, there are 11 Rudra Amsam. Many of you may actually know. For each of the Rudra, he actually cut off one of his head and gave it to him as Ahuti. And that's how he got power. But because there are 11, he had only 10 heads. He couldn't really satisfy the 11th one. Guess what? The 11th one took the Hanuman avatar. So anyway, that's all in kind of digressing. The point I'm trying to say is, he was such a Shiva Bhakta, except he had everything. Our Purvacharyas, if you were to ask, they would say, he had everything. Stairya, Dhairya, Virya, Vijaya, he had everything. What did he miss? The one thing that he missed was Kshama. He did not have Karuna. He did not have that. If he had that, he would be like Rama. That is the only thing he was missing. He had everything else. Adhanalata Ramanukku peru sollumbodu Karuna Kakustan. He actually, Swami Desan gives him a title. He could have given him any title. He gives him one title, Karuna Kakustan. That is the most important thing, because if you think about it, for all of us having done so much, pounds and so many things, he doesn't need to look at us at all. Only because he has Karuna, he looks at us. Otherwise, so that's the important part. So Rama was known for that. Karuna Kakustan, he was actually known for that very thing. So anyway, so the way this entire Ramayana starts is actually very very interesting. as Valmiki got his got Saraswati to sit in his tongue, he goes to his hermitage, just right by the Tamasa river, and as he goes there, he finds two birds out there two Krauncha Pakshi, and they were actually enjoying their life. Their Krauncha Pakshi is crane, two cranes sitting in a tree. They're having fun, and because Valmiki has got this new life, he's very enthralled. He's so happy. Everything that used to be not so interesting, everything is interesting to him. And so when he looks at these birds in love and they're having fun, as he was looking at it, a hunter comes and hits that bird. And as soon as he sees that, he's so depressed. He immediately that shokam comes out of him as a shlokam. And it is actually a sapam. He actually curses that guy, that hunter. He goes, Ma nishada pratishtam tvam agama shashwati samaha. Ma nishada pratishtam tvam agama shashwati samaha. Yat krauncha mitunatekam avadhi kama mohitam. What he did was he actually gave shapam to this hunter. Essentially says Ma nishada means alpais. You'll die. You'll not live long. You'll die. Pradishtam tam. So why should he die? But the hunter says, what did I do? That's my dharma. The fact that I killed this bird, that's something that I do. He goes, no. Yat krauncha mitunat. So that krauncha mitunam that it's a male krauncha bird. The time you killed avadhi kama mohitam. He was actually playing with his consort when you killed. That's a wrong time to kill, even for a hunter. And so I'm going to give you shap. As he gives this, he feels bad. Valmiki is not about giving shap, right? He just got this new life. He comes back to his hermitage. He's so sad. Then Narada comes and says, "Don't worry about it. What you did, what came out of your mouth, has nothing to do with shapa. In fact, it is. He explains what it is. Ma nishada. If you want to take the ma as a negative sense, well, many times ma is actually negative, right? There are many ways of using Sanskrit words. Sometimes it is that ma can also be interpreted as Taya, Mahalakshmi, which is so important for today. Ma nishada becomes Srinivasa. It's all of a sudden you will not live has become Srinivasa. You live long. Ma nishada pratishtam tvam agama shashwati samaha. Shashwati na why? Yat krauncha mituna. Krauncha also means Rakshasa. Krauncha mitunam means Rakshasa Talevan. So you killed Rakshasa Talevan. Who is that? Ravana. Because you did the samharam of Rakshasa, Ravana, and what was his fault? His fault was Kama Mohitam. Kama Mohitam. Because he was, he had this bad quality, the fact that you samharam, you did the samharam of this person, hey Srinivasa, you live longer. So the shapam that came out of his mouth turned out to be the very first shloka that came out of Valmiki. It actually, there is another significance to this too. It actually becomes the 18th, in the first sargam, first volume, second sargam, 15th shloka. If you add it all up, it is 18th, which is also a very significant number in our Vedic Manam. Anyway, so that's the shlokam, but the Tapasvatya Inanadam Tapasvi Vakvidamaram, that is the first shloka of Ramayana. That's how it starts. Then Valmiki goes and fills all those things afterwards, but this is the first shlokam that comes out of his mouth. Anyway, so that moving forward a little bit, since we were going to talk about Sundara Kandam and taken already so much time on everything else around it. The thing to talk about in Ramayana, it has been broken into 7 different kandams, as we spoke about, right? Each of these 7 kandams, there is lesson to be learned. We said that Ramayana is a Vedamata's avataram and so on, right? So why did this need to happen, right? Fact of the matter is, Vedam is very hard for people to understand. It's like the if you go to a school in India, you can see this, right? You read through the theory all day long, and in the evening you do the practicals. That's how you get to learn. You practice, right? Same deal here. The theory part, the theory portion is really the Vedam. The practical portion, Bhagavan showed that it can be done. And he lived and showed how to do this. That's the practical portion, and that's what Ramayana is all about, right? So if that is the case, what's the point? Every concept that is hidden in this, it's almost like a coating with sugar. A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. There are lots of concepts that if I were to give it to you directly, you will never take it in the right sense. But if it is done as a drama, if it is done something that you would like to you enjoy, whether through music or through some other pravachan or something like that, then it actually goes into you, right? So that's the concept here. So Ramayana is nothing but all the concepts of Vedam given to us in a format that we can consume. That's basically all it is. So if that's the case, what do each of the sargam, what do you get out of each of these? So, we can I wanted to go through this thing very quickly, not take too much time, because you want to get to the Sundara Kandam, we can't do this. Bala Kandam is basically all about from the start of Rama's birth all the way through Sita Kandam. That's Bala Kandam, right? It's Valmiki fast forwards that, so he really wants to get to the other enjoyable part. So he actually doesn't do a lot of Bala Kandam description. So if you look at our Alvars, they have done many of those. Actually, Kulasekar Alvar, who was such an ardent devotee of Lord Rama, out of all the Alvars, he has basically composed pretty much all of the Tamil Butterfly. And if you have, many of you may have also learned that, right? Manu pugal kausalaitan mani vairu vaitavane tennilangai kon mudigal sindhu vitai champunse kanninanma adul pudai sur kanapuratil karumaniye kanninanma adul pudai sur kanapuratil karumaniye ennudaya innamude raghavane tadelo. He goes through this, Alvar does 10 such stanzas. We can, you can just do an Alvar's version of Ramayana too, which is what his kids did, by the way, and that will take its own time. But anyway, after that gets done, in Ayodhya Kandam we can see, essentially all of their time being spent, enjoying the kingdom for a little bit, right, as prince, and they're having fun. But there's not a whole lot of description of that, other than the fact that Rama goes with Vishwamitra, gets his Vidya and all that stuff. So there's a lot of description there. And then towards the end, as Dasharatha yields to Kaikeyi's those two varams and so on and so forth, Rama, Lakshmana and Sita, they end up going to the Kanha. That's basically the gist of what happens there. Again, there's a lot of things to be learned there, and I'll just fast forward that too. The thing to learn there, if there is any, that I would concentrate on is there are lots of Neeti Kadaigal where Sita has learned so many things. When she was only 6 years old when she got married, Rama was 12 years old. In that 6-year period of time, she has learned so much from Dasharatha and her mom. Do you know anybody know her name? Sita's father's name? Sunaila. So from her, she learns so many Neeti Kadaigal. So she actually sits with Rama and they go through that quite a bit. So there's a lot of fun things we can go through that. We'll do it in a different time. The third sargam is really when third canto or third kanda is the Aranya Kandam. Aranya Kandam is that's another place where if you are a philosopher or if you just need to know how to live your life, you can learn from Rama. Then there's a lot of things that happen there. But anyway, he goes through so many Maharishis and Rishis and gives them Bhayam and gets rid of many evil forces. Just skip through that. And in the towards the end of that is where Ravana takes away Sita, and then that part occurs. And then then Kishkinda Kandam. Kishkinda Kandam is all about how Sugriva and Rama, they become friends, and Vali with them, and then they all go in search of Mahalakshmi or Sita. The next sargam is the Sundara Kandam, which will go in detail, and then Yuddha Kandam, and then Uttara Kandam. The reason we wanted to go through the other parts, some other day we'll sit and then just look into those kandams. The thing that is also important is during the Sundara Kandam time, all the Sugrivan basically sends all these people in different direction. They all go to a place called Swayamprabha. Swayamprabha is a guha, it's a cave. And through that cave, they just go in. I mean, the Vanarams go in multiple directions. Some go north, some go east, some go west, and some go south. And the crowd that goes towards south is the one that actually has Hanuman, Ankaran, Jambavan, all these people. And that's the one that goes through the Swayamprabha and then comes out of it. When they come out of that Swayamprabha, somehow they come out of it. They are actually in a place called Nanganeri, Tirukkurungudi Nambi. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about Tirukkurungudi Nambi. Have you heard about Tirukkurungudi Nambi? Yes, we have. Tirukkurungudi Nambi is in Vaishnava Sampradayam, Tirukkurungudi Nambi தான் ஆழ்வாரா வந்தார் அப்படிங்கிறது ஒரு மரபு. அதாவது நம்மாழ்வார், his avataram was Tirukkurungudi Nambi, took the avataram of Ramayana. That is one of the kartu. That Bhagavan is so beautiful. He's actually called Vadivarhi Nambi because he's so beautiful. He's got some. There are very few murtis where they actually have colors and paints and all that. And this is one such place. Alvar has got, Alvar gets lost in his beauty. Actually, he actually sings this. Sangunodam, Neniyodam, Tavarik, Kadinodam, Sanginiva, Vadinodam, Selhindane, Nenjamene. He just sings about his glory and beauty and gets lost in that for a long time. Anyway, the reason that is important is the starting point of Sundara Kandam happens in that Nanganeri Malai, that Tirukkurungudi Nambi, that Asthanam, who is known for beauty. Right from there, that entire Sundara Kandam is beautiful. My Acharya used to say this. I wanted to say this thing only because you keep hearing this. Sundara Kandam is called Sundara Kandam because it describes about the Sundari Sita. Hanuman's name is Sundara. And the Kandam itself is so beautiful. The mantram is Sundaram. The Kimna Sundaram. Sundare Kimna Sundaram is what they say. One thing they all miss out in that is really to say that the starting point, Shuklam Bhadravishnam Pottade Bhagavan. And the Yadame beautiful. Arambame Vadivarhi Nambilend Aramchid. Hanuman actually stands up in that Mahendra Parvatam, which is where the thing is. That's where he actually jumps to Sri Lanka. So that place itself is, and then the beauty is still there actually. That place is still very pristine and beautiful. Anyway, the point I'm trying to say is, they come to that place, and as they pretty much lost their fate. I don't think they're going to find Sita. They're pretty much here. We're not seeing her. Samudram is right here. What am I going to do? So that's when the Sampati comes in. And again, you know this story pretty well. Sampati, one of the stories there is Sampati actually is a very old eagle. He's lost all his power to fly and so on and so forth. But the fact that he lost his flying capacity, not because he's just old, but he actually, both him and his brother Jatayu, both actually at one point in time they went sightseeing. They went towards sun. They wanted to see how sun is. As they were going, they couldn't take the heat of sun. Sun was burning them. As that was happening, Jatayu was younger brother, and in his Vatsalyam, he actually cuddled him, covered him up in such a way that he lost his ability to fly, but he saved 100%. He saved his brother 100%. Anyway, they come down, and so from that day on, he's not a bird that can actually fly well. But he could see that time, right? But now he's really old. He can't even see well. When he hears the story that these monkeys are talking about, in terms of just like Jatayu, we also should just give up our life because we have not been able to fulfill the wishes of our Lord. And then the fact that he hears Jatayu comes running and asks, "Why did you speak about my brother?" He goes, "Well, they tell him the story. Jatayu's, he fought, and in that war, he basically lost his life. So that time, he says something that is very important. He says, that is how everybody should live. Everybody should live to and give up their life towards the Bhagavad Kainkariya. The fact that Jatayu was able to do is such a punyatma. That's why he actually got moksha that Bhagavan gave. I wish I could do that." And then he thinks about it. These people are chanting Ram, Ram, Ram by the time. And because of that, he was able to fly a little bit. He was able to see a little better. And he goes in with his ability. He gives the entire power that he has, the last bit of strength that he had in him. He goes and looks for Sita, looks at her, and tells her, "I can see her. I can't see the entire, Sita perfectly, but I can see her image. She is right there. She is right there in Sri Lanka. I can see her." And then he dies. So, again, I have to go back to the Arval. He says, "Jihve kirtaya keshavam muraripum cheto bhaja sridharam panidvanda samarchaya achyuta katha shrotradvayadvam shrunu krishnam lokaya lochanadvaya hare gacchangri yugmalayam jigragrana mukunda pada tulasim murdhannama adhokshajam murdhannama adhokshajam." Arvar here, Kulasekar Arvar, gives each of our senses one job. If you do that, you will not think about anything else. Bhagavan gave us this thing to do. Jihve kirtaya, jihva means tongue. Kirtaya keshavam, you are supposed to keep chanting the name Keshava, Keshava, Keshava. Muraripum cheto bhaja, Bhagavan manasula nanchukonga. Sridharam panidvanda samarchaya achyuta kataha shrotradvayatvam shrunu. Katala kekam. Krishnam lokaya, with your eyes, look at Krishna. Lochanadvaya hare gacchangri yugmalayam. Yugmangana rendu kaalgalala kovil perumal kovil hari kovil is what he says. Jigragrana mukunda pada tulasi. With your nose, smell the fragrance of the of tulasi that is in his feet. Jigragrana mukunda pada tulasi murdhannama talayala vadanga ashtanga namaskaram pannunga. Murdhanam Adhokshajam. So he gives each of these things. The point I'm trying to say is, everything that we do should be in as an arpanam to Bhagavan, is what the lesson learned from Jatayu and Sampati. Sampati teaches this thing before he dies. Even in the last second, he is useful to Bhagavan. I mean, I'm useful. He not only says Bhagavan, Bhagavat Kainkaryam, Bhagavata Kainkaryam also he says and then dies. So that's, it's an important message, important Sri Vaishnava message that we should, we should remember. And one of the other things that I don't know how many are interested, but it says in Ramayanam that Hanuman jumps 100 yojanas. Every yojana is about 10 miles. So that's about 1,000 miles he jumped. Now you can think about it. He's not jumping from Rameshwaram. It's not Rameshwaram to Sri Lanka. That's not that many miles. He's jumping from Nanganeri Mala. So he had Mahendra Parvatat, then he's jumping. So that is far off, but it is still not nowhere near 1,000 miles. So the our Purvacharyas have basically accepted that this is what it is, and they have said that based on the description of Ravana's Aranmana and his palace and so on, his description of the palace itself is 3 times the Sri Lanka today, and that entire town of his, right? So if that's the case, you can imagine how big Sri Lanka was. So they are saying that it was basically direct south of India, not southeast of India. It used to be direct south. Little portion is left behind there. A lot of portion has already gone under water, so we're not able to see it. So the Sri Lanka that he jumped into, there was no point in jumping somewhere close and then finding out. He needed to go very fast, so he had to go right to the action place. That's why he went. He could have jumped this place and then he could have gone walking or something, right? He just jumped across so that he can be there in the place of action fast. That's why he went there. Anyway, that's for people who are interested in knowing why does it say 1,000 miles? Why is it really 1,000 miles and all that? As a statistics, you can go through that. So he jumps there, and you know what he does after that. But there is an important concept of Sundara Kandam. Remember how we said before that Ramayana is part of it's basically Vedam taking an avatar here, and every Kandam actually has an important message to give. Sundara Kandam has a very, very important message to give, and I really want you guys to sit up a little and hear this. But prior to that, as our Purvacharyas have thanked 2 Acharyas for this, and I'm going to just say his Taniyan, and then we'll get into this. Paduke yati rajasya katayanti yatahvaya tasya dasharate padau shirasadharayamyaham. I'm not sure how many people know about Ramanujacharya, his Pradhana Sishyas. I'm sure you all know about Ramanujacharya. He had 2 Pradhana Sishyas. One was Kurattarvan, the other one was Mudaliyarthan. Danda Pavitram. A sannyasi has to have both Dandam and Pavitram. In fact, Swami Desikan, he's composed 70 shlokams on Ramanuja, Itiraja Saptati, and there he says how a yati should be. Anyway, we'll go through that in a bit. Upavidinam Purna Urdhva Pundravantam Trijagat Punyapalam Tridandahastam Shikhaya Shekarinam Patim Yatina. The Sri Vaishnava yatis have Tridandam. Advaiti sannyasi will have 1 dandam. The Sri Vaishnava 3 dandam. I won't go to the details of why it is the case. That will take another session. So he describes how the yatis are. And another important thing that they have, Tridandam, Pavitram. They always have Pavitram in their hand. So Ramanuja had his 2 Pradhana Sishyam as Dandam and Pavitram. Dandam, Kurattarvan is his Dandam, considered as his Dandam, and Pavitram was Mudaliyanda. And there is also a very good reason why that is the case. We'll probably do that another time. And you know, in Vamana Avataram, that Pavitram comes in very handy. Where Shukracharya gets anyway, so we can imagine what I'm trying to say. I won't get into that right now. This Mudaliyandan, very sharp, and he is considered as Rama's avatar. Ramanuja Mudaliyandan, Ramanuja avatar. Ramanuja Lakshmana avatar. Your Rama avatar. It's one of the thought process. Same nakshatram. In fact, that's why even in Staniya we say Dasharathe Padam. Dasharathe na that Acharya, he had lots of students. Meaning, Srirangam, you have to ask him. He had so many students. He would, they would come to him asking all kinds of questions. So there were some believers and non-believers. Those days, it was the case, right? So one of the non-believer student of his, just perfectly fine. And that's how it should be. If you are a non-believer, if I'm able to explain it to you, maybe you can become a believer, right? He asked him a question: why should I believe Ramayana? What's there in it? What's the point? I don't get it. And you guys keep talking about it. He first says, well, my Acharya has said this is true, so I'm going to believe it. Other, Shankaracharya has said, Madhvacharya said, all the Acharyas, they've accepted it. That's one reason to it. That guy is not satisfied. He says, sit down, I'll tell you the real meaning behind it. If you had to ask me, there is no way I can go back and prove it to you, neither can you. I cannot prove it is true, you cannot prove it is not true. What's the point? The point is not whether it is true or not. Let's look at the concepts and see if you like the concept. If you like the concept, then we can go further. So this person was very, he was after jnana more than bhakti, and he was after jnana. He wanted the jnana. So he's made him sit down, and he goes through the concept about Sundara Kandam. What's so important about it? Because Sundara Kandam is kind of the heart of Ramayana. If you go through Sundara Kandam, you go through the entire Ramayana, because the entire Ramayana is in it. So he goes, the lesson to be learned from this is Sita Devi. You know the story. Sita is out there in Lanka, and Ravana has put her in the jail, and there is no way she can get out of this place. Rama is there, and Sita is there, big ocean is in between, there's no way for them to communicate. They don't know how Rama doesn't know how she is doing, Sita doesn't know how Rama is doing. There's no way for them to understand. And Hanuman all of a sudden comes from nowhere, comes to help her, and then comes with Rama's message, makes her happy, stops her from committing suicide and all that stuff, gets her Chudamani, goes right back to Rama and gives it to him. So all these things, you already know the story. He goes, that's this outside story. Now I'll give you what's the marundu under it. A spoonful of sugar. The frontal part is a spoonful of sugar, but I'll tell you the actual content behind it. Sita Devi, you have to consider her as the Jivatma. If you consider her as the Jivatma, Lanka is like the body. The Jivatma today, all of us, is encapsulated in this body, and there is no way for us to get out. This is also a jail, that is also a jail. So Sita Devi has been captured and put in a jail. And in this particular place, there is Ravana, who is constantly coming and pestering her to forget about Rama and marry him. In our world, the parallel to that, in our world, is Manas. Manas is like that Ravana that is constantly pestering us to do things that it wants. And the Ravana here had 10 heads to support his cause. In the current world, if you were to see, in our world, this world actually has 10 indriyangal, 5 karmendriyam, 5 jnanendriyam. So these 5 plus 5, 10, they support this manas 100%. Whatever this manas wants, this karmendriyam and jnanendriyam does. So like Ravana, who had 10 heads, there is this that has 10. Anyway, the karmendriyam and jnanendriyam are playing that role. The fact that there is big samudram here that is separating Rama and Sita, here also in our world, if you look at it, the Bhavasagar, this entire world itself is like the sagar. In fact, every acharya, every work, if you look at it, this world is described as Bhavasindhu, Bhavasagar. The more you go in it, the more it will pull you down. Same thing. There is no way. The ocean between Lanka and India was so deep, there is no way. And that was a dividing factor between Rama and Sita. Here, the same thing. Between the Paramatma and the Jivatma, exactly the same thing. Then, something happens. Hanuman, from India, he jumps and comes all the way over to Lanka. In our world, the Acharya does exactly the same thing. And the reason this is important is Hanuman, in this case, already has, he knows about the Lord. And he comes to, which is Paramatma, has learned about it, experienced it, and so on. And then when he comes over to the other side, he sits with Sita Devi, who is the Jivatma representation, and basically gives her all the information about Bhagavan. And not only that, he brings in some Kanayari Modram, and we'll go through that in a little bit. One of our acharyas basically Ambanarangarkum Avikkum Antaranga Sambandam Kati Tadai Niki. Fast forward that for those who don't understand Tamil. What he's trying to say is, he's giving the definition of what an acharya is. An acharya is one who Ambanarangarkum Ranganatha Perumal is a representation of Paramatma. Avikkum, which is the Jivatma. Antaranga Sambandam Kati. He shows there is 9 relationship, inseparable relationship between us. If you look at most of us, we have one relationship with one another. Here's my mom, here's my dad, here's my wife. That's the relationship we have, right? It's a one-to-one relationship. With Bhagavan, there are 9 inseparable relationships we have with him. Dhari Dharir Bhav, Bhartru Bharya Bhav, Sharira Chariri Bhav, Putra Pita Putra Bhav. There are 9 inseparable relationships that we have with the Lord. He's Dharya Dharaka Bhavam, Rakshya Rakshaka Bhavam. There are so many relationships that we have with him. He's the only one that we have that kind of relationship. So Acharya, therefore, comes and teaches us all these things. And if he were to teach all these things, how do I know that this guy is really the right Acharya? There are so many Poli Acharyas nowadays, right? We all know. How do we know that he is the right Acharya? Adikku Swami Desikan gives a very he's actually his son. He has a very, very nice description. Sashanka Chakra Lanchanas Sadutva Pundra Mandita Sakhanda Lagna Santona Sanatka Padma Malika. Around number Acharya, when they come, we talked about Upavedinam, Urdu Pundramandam, Trijagat Punyamanam, Tridanda Hastam. On top of that, they have Sashanka Chakra Lanchanam. Adillata Nambave Namalangran. You have to have the Shankam Chakram Puri, Adirkanam. And the Pancha Samskaram Nadandavalku, Bhagavan has already given them via the Acharya, they have given him all the Mantropadesham, all the things that you need, the qualification that you need to be an Acharya. And therefore, when they come, you know for a fact that this person is an authentic person. So, so that's basically the idea. There is a story there is a parallel story. I guess I'll give you a quick story so you can get this thing for life, right? And the story is like this. There is a merchant. He does roaring business, and there is a point in time when he's grown so big, he wants to go outside of his place and go somewhere else and sell, right? But his wife is Purna Garbhini, so she's really carrying and he cannot take her anywhere, and he has to go in the sea, and it's rough on those days, right? So he needs to do this, and he doesn't know what to do. So he leaves her here, and he goes. And he goes in business, and he does roaring business, and he's fantastic. And he's amassed a lot of wealth and money and so on and so forth. It takes him almost 12, 13 years of going around. In those days, it's not that simple, right? Going in a ship to another place and doing business and coming back. It took him almost 15, 16 years to come out of that, right? So he was planning on coming back. As he was planning on coming back to his original place, he stops by another port, and that port, and because this guy is such a powerful person with all the perfect material to sell and so on and so forth, he comes there, undocks, comes into the dock, and he was going to undock it. Right at the same time, another young chap comes in. He's got his boat, he's got his ship, he's got everything. There's only one port in that area, and he couldn't. This businessman couldn't get his stuff out. He gets very angry with this guy, this young lad. He goes, "Hey, young lad, get out of my place. I am much more senior than you are. This is my place. I will do business first, and then you can come later on." So they just he goes, you're an old man. You have no strength. I have a lot of strength. I'm very young. I can fight with you. Let's fight and let's see who wins. So they literally start fighting, a sword fight, right? So at that time, an old gentleman comes by, and he's from that original place where this merchant was. He has seen this merchant. He knows him very well. He has also seen this small boy, a young lad, because this young lad, unknown to the merchant, was actually his son. He was so good, he actually did all this trade. Now this person basically said, "You know what? You guys, if you just join together, you can do such good business. You're killing each other. This is your father, this is your son. Just know, and live happily from this point on." That connection is what an Acharya does. So it's very simple. We constantly are not believing in the Lord, fighting, and so this example, which is called Drishtanta, and Drashtantika, which is what we are trying to explain, are not exactly identical. You have to remember that. And the reason it is not identical, Sita Devi there never listened to Ravana, but we keep listening to our manas. So don't think that every example is exactly the way it is, but it is a way of conveying the message, right? So the Drishtanta and the Drashtantika are not 100% the same. And also the other thing that Acharya tells him is the Kanayari that Hanuman brings. Kanayari is ring. That Modaram is a symbol of what? Bhagavan's Abhayastam. Abhayastam. So Anugraham Pattana. And when that comes, as an Acharya, if any of you have been through Samashrayanam, you know what I'm talking about. You do Pada Namaskaram, Sharanagati. Sharanagati Pannamal Perumal Anugraham. That's Acharya Anugraham. Through Acharya, we go through Bhavan. That's why very first shlokam I said was Ennuyir Thandalittavare Sharanam Pukku Yanadeven Avar Gurukkal Niraivadangi Pinnarulal Perumboodur Vandavallal Periyanambi Alavandar Manakkal Nambi Nannarai Avar Kurathu Uyyakondar Nathavani Sadagovan Sheranathan Innamadu Tirumahal Indri Ivargalai Munnittu Emperumaan Thiruvudaiyal Alaigindrarne. This is by Swami Desika also. basically gives the entire Guru Parampara ladder. So that's basically how it is. And Bhagavan, so the Modar Toda in importance is that. So the Acharyan brings that Ashirvadam from Bhagavan. In return, what does Sita Devi do? She does not give her whatever, right? She gives her Chudamani. That is a representation of what we went through before. Murdham nama adhokshajam. That's what she does. Charanagati. Sashtanga namaskaram charanagati. Therefore, why the reason I'm saying this part is important. In fact, I didn't say it. This was by Mudaliyandan. Mudaliyandan says these things which has been recorded, and I'm just repeating it back here. Reason this is important, these are all concepts. And we hear stories that Sita gave was some other thing, Abharanam. That's not true. This is the only, Chudamani is the only Abharanam that she gives. And there is a significance for that. Rama gives a Modaram, Sita gives a Chudamani, that's it. So if somebody were to say something, just ignore that. That's nowhere in Ramayana or any other place. So, what else I wanted to say here? The shlok, this episode was basically then heard that a student becomes one of the prime student of Mudaliyandan, and through him and that lineage passes on through to Swami Desikam. And when he hears this, he has actually composed a shlokam. Darpodagra Dashendriyanana Manonaktam Charadishtite Dehesmin Bhavasinduna Parigate Dinam Dashamam Ashrataha Adyatve Hanumat Samena Guruna Prakyartam Puman Lanka Ruddha Videha Rajatanayan Nyayena Lalabhyate. The reason he's actually captured this whole essence of what we just went through about Jivatma, Paramatma, and the essence of this in this shlokam. And I think if you were to just go back and look at and replay some of these concepts, on the outside of it, it might look, what is this guy talking about philosophy and all stuff, and so on and so forth. But if you really were to, look inside, there are each of these. You can apply this in your day-to-day life, and you will see the difference. If you were to eat certain ways, if you were to do Sandhya Vandanam, please, I'm not preaching anybody, and this is not my goal at all. It's not what this is all about. I'm just giving you, this is not even an advice or anything. I'm just saying as I've heard, and I have, to whatever extent I know and I have experienced. The more you do that's why it is called Acharam. Acharam is nothing but how you conduct yourself. Acharati, yatyat acharate sreshtaha. So, if you just follow them, that is what is Acharam. Acharam is not just being clean. Acharam is how do you conduct yourself the way people have done. In fact, Swami Desikam in one of his Tatpari Chandrika, which is where he writes about Bhagavad Gita, there he says there are lots of concepts that is, sometimes you look, it seems like Bhagavan is contradicting and so on. Except sometimes we don't understand. I don't care about what other people have said. My matam or my thing is to just follow him. Whatever he has said, I'm just going to blindly follow him. Because he says that if you listen to Bhagavad Gita, if you listen to Bhagavatam, if you listen to the Pravachanam, it makes me happy. If that makes him happy, then I'm going to do that. That's all I'm going to do. That's how he ends up concluding with whenever there is conflict in interest, that's how he resolves them. So, that's why I wanted to say that if you really go through that, you'll get, I think you'll see what I'm talking about. Anyway, in the, having had all this introduction, realistically speaking, now only Sundara Kandam starts, but I'll really fast forward this. In the very first shlokam of Sundara Kandam, it goes, Tatho Ravana Nitayaha Sitayaha Satrukarshana Yesha Balavanveshtam Charana. So I'm sure all of you have, by heart, many of you may have by heart this thing. It says, Tato Ravana Nitaya, which means Ravana, took her and then he flew her with him, right? Forcefully took. Our acharyas have completely refused to believe. That's absolutely not true. It's not possible at all. Ravana, Alpan Ravana, boy, Ravana, Sita, can't even touch her. How did this happen? In fact, that is again in Sanskrit, it is such a beautiful language. Tatho Ravana Nitayahana, you can ask Tataha, Aravana Nitayahana. When you do that, it becomes Sita Devi took Ravana and flew with him. And now you will say, what is this? Why would that be the case? What's the point of that? The point of that is, again, our acharyas come to my help and our help. If you have a person that's fallen into the well, you have to fall inside the well to save him and protect him and bring him up. You can't save otherwise. Ravana, what he has done, lots of Apsarastris and so many people, he has imprisoned them and put them in his place. And if you have to go free them up, you have to not only free them up, you have to completely clean that entire place. If Sita Devi goes there willingly, not unwillingly, willingly, and keeps her foot, then only that place can be even cleansed. Otherwise, the entire place will be orange samala. So she goes willingly, even though in this drama it is, it goes as if, and so that's our Purvacharya's nirvaham of this. Otherwise, Ravana cannot even touch her. Okay, so that's one of the commonly, at least not known fact. So, and then, Hanuman, in order to jump from this Parvata, he actually grows and grows. And, lots of kids also would come back and say, how can people grow? And it's not completely unbelievable and so on. Again, we can go through that. There's the Ashta Siddhi I was talking about. One of the Siddhi is exactly that. Hanuman was capable of, if the rain were to come down, rain is coming down and there are so many rain droplets, right, that are coming. Hanuman is one person who can dodge all that and not get wet. Can we do it? None of us can do it. And even if we have a quota, we can't do it. But anyway, that's the power of Hanuman. And how did he get this siddhi and all that stuff? Again, we can go through that. But anyway, that's the it's not important. But what is important is next niti that you learn from this place. So we already learned about Jivatma, Paramatma, and the relationship that is start from us. The second thing, very useful for all of us, when you learn. When Hanuman goes from India to Lanka, that time, 3 obstacles come. You all know that, right? The first one is Mainaka Parvatam. Second one is Surasa. Surasa is a snake. And then you have the Simhika Rakshasi, who was a third person. On the outside of it, again, from the story side of it, it's again the spoonful of sugar thing, right? What's the underneath thing? Again, our Acharya comes to help us. He basically says, in our life, day-to-day life, we go through so many people. Some that are friends, they come to us as friends. So when two friends talk, when two friends behave, there's a certain way you interact with them. And the second thing is, people who are your friends, they come as enemy. They're not enemy at this point in time. They're just upset with you. That happens, right? We all human beings. That happens. So they are friends. They're good at heart. They want good thing for you, but they're upset with you and whatever. The third that occurs is a shatru comes, a bad person comes. So there are lots of, and then there's the fourth one, a friend that comes as a shatru. That also happens. In this particular episode, it doesn't happen. Only 3. Hanuman meets only 3 people. The first one is Mainaka Parvatam is actually a friend that comes to help another friend, right? And you all know the story of Mainaka. Mountains in those days used to have wings. They used to fly around, create all kinds of problems, and Indra got tired of it. He basically used his Vajrayudam and cut all the wings. But Vayu Bhagavan and Mainaka Parvatam, which was Himachalam's Himagiri Himalayas son, he basically did Sharanagati, please save me, protect me, and so on. So he now wants to help. Because Vayu Bhagavan takes him, puts him under the ocean. So he says, stay there, stay put, don't ever come out. If you come out, the Vajrayudam will kill you, or will clip your wings. So be there. So he's hidden. But now that Hanuman actually goes for a good cause, and because Vayu Bhagavan helped him, and his Vayuputra, he wants to come and help him. Now, Hanuman basically doesn't need that help, but it's a good gesture from a friend, right? A friend to a friend. And actually, Mainaka Parvata doesn't even want to come up. He's so scared. He doesn't really want to come up. Samudra Raja actually goes to Indra and says, please take away your weapon. He's not going to help in the Rama's cause. And so for some time he actually suspends it. Anyway, Mainaka Parvatam comes and tries to help him. Hanuman doesn't take the help. What does he do? He just gives it a hug and then goes forward. And what's the point of this, right? The point of this is a friend when he comes to help. Actually, let me go through all three scenarios and then I'll come to the point of it. The second one is the Surasa, the Nagamata comes up. She is actually she's not, against, she has nothing to do with Hanuman. She's not, a Rakshasa or somebody like that is out there to take revenge, nothing like that. She's a good person, but Devatas, they want to test Hanuman's strength and valor and so on. So they actually come and basically tell her, you stand up, and because you have this varam of eating, not actually eating, consuming a vanaram, you go, this is a vanaram, and go stand there. So basically, she goes up and based on everybody else's push, she goes there and it's not something she wants to do, but she does it. And then she gets into the act and then does her stuff. In this particular case, a person that really doesn't want to harm, and yet she's upset because of a different reason. She's opening her mouth bigger and bigger and bigger, and you know what Hanuman does? He goes bigger, and then with a lot of chaturyam, just in a fraction of a second, he becomes as small like a fly, goes right into her mouth, comes right out of it. Because when she gets the varam from Brahma, that's the way she actually gets it. She doesn't get it as actually read out. Nimishya vadanam medya gantavyam vanarottamashi. That gantavyam vanarottamashi. She just says, you should go into my mouth. She doesn't say that I should eat him up and digest him. Gantavyam, and then varayesha puradattaha. This particular varam was given to me by Puradatta is Brahma. Brahma dhatreti satvara. So you have no other choice. You have to go into my mouth. Is what she says, right? So he does it. He fulfills that, and then you know the story, and she's happy, he's happy, they go by. And then the third one is Simika the Rakshasi. A real enemy comes in front of you, in front of Hanuman. He goes and then goes into her mouth, just it just grows, and then with his strength kills her, comes out. So the Acharya then sits down to the same student and describes why this is important. The first one, what Hanuman did is very important, and that is he had the goal in front of him. No matter what happened, no matter what distraction came along, he just went towards it. When you have to, he was so sharp, so focused, he didn't want to do anything else. So he could have easily rested a day or so, and so on and so forth. If he had done that, Sita would be no more. Think about it. So it could not have happened. So there are lots of if, then, and but. We can keep putting it on. So when you have a goal, when you're going towards it, just look at that. That's the first thing that you look at. Dirgha darshanam, kurunda parvai is what they say, right? So the second thing that he does, so instead of going, what he does, when Mainak Parvatam comes, a friend comes, he basically gives him a hug and he wins him over with love. So that's the thing to understand. So when a friend is coming in between you and your goal, right? You don't want to make him upset. You know, in our house we do this thing all the time, right? We shout at kids all the time. They don't really mean any harm. You know, we don't know where to show our thing, right? So that he wins over that Mainak Parvatam with love. So that's what you need to do. When a friend comes to help, and you don't really need to do that, you can get by with love. The second thing that you learn is when somebody else is out there, comes to you, a friend kind of upset, not, what did he do there? With Chaturyam, he gets out of it. So, andadathla Chaturita kaattanam. Smartness. You need to decide what to do. You don't have a lot of time to think. You have a goal to go to work, but there is an obstacle. This person is not going to, there if you show love, that's not going to work. You know all that. So you have to do something. You have to show your strength, but you don't want to kill this person. It's just not really important. So you have to show Chaturyam there, and with smartness, he wins over her. And then she's happy, he's happy, they go partners. The third one, she is a real Rakshasi with real powers, with real capabilities and so on. You have to somehow, you have to kill her. That's when you can move forward. So he shows that. So what the Acharya then ends up saying is, this is what you learn from this. It's all good that all these stories occurred, but he goes back again and says, Ramayana is nothing but a story enacted by Rama. So you can go back and say, is it real or not real? Or is drama real or not real? You can go back and keep arguing that. The fact is, regardless of it is real or not, these things teach you something. This is what it teaches you. There is also another question he poses to this Acharya. Okay, when a Shatru comes in as a friend, what do I do? There is an answer for that. We'll go through in a different session. That is the most difficult thing that can ever happen, right? All the other three, that's okay. But when a Shatru comes as a friend, identifying and moving forward with this is, I'll give you the answer for it. When that kind of thing happens, only Bhagavan can save you. If you had done enough Sharanagati, if you really believe in that, and if you have really counted on your, only Bhagavan can help you. In that case is basically what the answer is. But we can go through the details of it, and then it will be 9 o'clock by the time I get done here.
Bhagavan can help in identifying that it's really an enemy? Or?
Correct.
Oh.
Correct. You have to still use your Chaturyam. You have to still use your ways to get out of it. And that's why I didn't want to get into it. Because there is that question there assumes that you have every power to do things. Our Acharyas have not even accepted that as an answer. That is the first answer they give. Then they say Neti. Then they go back and say, you have done Sharanagati, just forget it. Bhagavan Kapatva. If he does it for a good reason. Is how that concludes. That's why I didn't want to go there. We can, that's a good question, we should do that. So, Valmiki concludes this thing that actually four properties, or 4 qualities of Hanuman. He says, Yasya Tvetani Chatvari Vararendra Yatatava Dhritihi. Dhriti means boldness. Drishtihi, long vision. Matihi, quick decision making ability. And ability to do things. Daksham. Yaksham sa karmasana nasidati. So he basically describes the qualities that he had. That is why in one of, you may have all heard, Buddhir Balam Yashoderyam Nirbhayak Marovana Ajadyam Vakpatutvancha Hanumat Svarana Bharet. that basically, that quick decision-making thing is very important. There's a story, again, this Acharya tells them. These stories are interesting, so it'll stick. There was a king, and a thief was caught. He's done something that they were going to execute him. They were going to kill him. Right? And that was his last day. And just before he was going to be executed, they put him in the pedestal. How would they do the execution? I don't know what the process was. Raja says, "What's your last wish?" And this guy says, "Well, I don't really have a last wish, but since you asked, I'll tell you this. I have a talent that in my lifetime I really couldn't give it to someone." And he goes, "Oh, let me hear what talent is that." He goes, "I can make an elephant fly." And Raja goes, "What?" "Yeah, I can make an elephant fly." Then Raja thinks. Then this guy says, "Oh, anyway, I'm going to die, so don't worry about it. I couldn't do it. Maybe next life I can do it." He goes, No. Wait. I want to see this. So how do you do it?" And then he goes on questioning him. The guy goes, "Well, if you give me an elephant that is about this many pounds and this many years old and so on and so forth, and give me a big place to rear it, and I need to, if I teach him at about 5, by the time he's 20, 25, he would fly." So he goes through this process, right? So Raja thinks, "Oh, okay, let me see." And he goes, "Don't worry, every so often you can come, visit me, and you can see how this is actually progressing, right?" So he goes, and Raja, instead of killing him, he goes, "Okay, I'm going to give you." He gives him a madal sword. He's just locked up in that place, right? Big place. He gives him a big palace. The elephants need a lot of. He goes, elephant need to run and then fly. It's not like just fly, take off like that. So he gets a big place for himself. Lot of food, because Yana needs a lot of food, right? Lot of food, lot of people to serve him. He's just having fun for 20-25 years. So one of his classmates, he comes and he knows him very well. He comes. He says, "What talent is that? I have never seen that in you before. How did you come up with this talent?" He goes, "Who knows? I don't know any of that. For right now, I can live for 25 years. And who knows? Tomorrow this king may die. And day after tomorrow something else might happen, and those guys might give me something else. I'll make another story." So the point is, even in the last second, with Chaturyam, you can win. Adam Buddhir Balam. And so the Acharya then keeps giving this person enough stories like this, which is where every time he goes through this, he goes, "Ram Ram." He has to, that is the condition. The Acharya does not just tell him stories, right? He goes through that and he has to say, in between he has to say Rama Rama. The Taraka Mantra has to be continuously chanted, otherwise he'll stop. So whenever he stops, the people around him need to chant Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Rama. So they're all chanting that. So slowly this non-believer starts becoming more and more and more of a believer. So anyway, so that's this. Then once Hanuman gets into Lanka, there's this Lankini Rakshasi. She's actually the guardian, or she guards that place, right? Nagari Svena Rupena. Actually, Valmiki's Anubhava, that is, she is Avirbhavam of Lanka itself. So he says, Nagari Svena Rupena. Tadarsha Pavanatpajam or Ponduroma on the Dingra. Satam Harivaram Drishtva, Lanka Ravana Palita. So that place which is guarded by Lanka, she is the person that guards that place. So anyway, the idea is, you all know about this. She has a kind of a varam. She was an Apsara Stri. She gets a Shabam, comes here. Shabam Vimochanam is when a monkey comes and knocks you. But the knock is very important. Not any knock. You know why she got the moksha? And that's the important part that only our acharyas can tell. Hanuman was actually carrying the modaram with him. Because he used that modaram to knock him down, that's why he got. So this was, again, this modaram has a lot of other significance to it. You know that in the Aranya Kandam, when Sita and Rama they are going to the forest, they give up everything. All ella avarathaiyum vechithamara. They don't have anything on them. How in the world she has a chudamani and Rama has a modaram? How did that happen? So there is a story behind chudamani, and it has to do with the Mahalya stories, and we'll skip through that because there's a lot more versions of it. Let me give you just the Modaram part of it. Modaram, what happens is in the Ayodhya Kandam, when Rama and Sita, they are actually, Aranya Kandam, Ayodhya Kandam. When Rama and Sita are playing by the Godavari river, they were having some discussion, they were talking about all kinds of things. The Modaram gets lost. Rama's Modaram gets lost in the Vanal, in the sand, as they are playing. And Godavari takes it away, just goes by. They never get it. Finally, that is gone. That episode is done. During the Aranya Kandam, Ekantama Ukkandrukka Samayathila, this Modaram in the Godavari river brings it back to them. And that's when Rama gets it, and then the story goes. Oh, this is the Umulku Mari irukena, then eduthu Sita Devi na eduthu kudukra. So it is taken out by Sita Devi from the ground. Mata Sidanama eduthu Bhagavan kiyila kuduthu. So now the Lord has worn a modaram that was given by her his in-laws, and he's got that. Now you think about all this thing, right? And that modaram has Tayar's anugraham in it and worn by Rama, therefore rendu peroda anugraham irukku. Then if you use that modaram to kuttu by somebody, that guy will get the moksha. That's how this whole episode goes. So that's why Lankini gets the Shapa Roji. So these are all, our Acharyas give us some real good things to think about. How this is all happened now. Because I'm sure some of you, if you start thinking about it, how did he get this modaram? How did he get this chudamani? Where did that come from? People will ask. Somebody will ask. I'm not sure if people here did. But anyway, then he gets into Lanka. He goes, looks at all the Parnashalai, all the places, and all that occurs. And finally, there is one thing that Hanuman goes. You up here probably already know. He looks at Mandodari and thinks that is Sita. In a spur of the moment, even for him, he's the humblest person that you can see. And even him, for a second, he loses that and thinks, I found Sita. And that I comes. And what he does, he uses, monkeys, and they're happy, they use their tail, and then they use their tail, he just jumps around and all that stuff. He actually, in Raman, if you read it, he actually uses his tail and kisses it many, many times. Yes, I found it, kind of thing. And there is a story towards the end about this also. So the point is, after he does this, he quickly realizes, I made a mistake. It took him only a few seconds. This is why Acharya's Nirvaham is Hanuman's tail gets burned. Just to Shuddhi, that's all. That's the only thing. It doesn't burn him, but that's why he gets the fire. Fast forward, because Bhagavan Ahankarata that goes away. So, fast forwarding this, towards the very end, when Rama is taking care of Ravana, Vijay Raghvanayachi, now he is out there and he's asking Sita Devi to be brought in front of everybody. All these Vanarams, they're waiting. Who is the Sita that Rama was going after? I have to see her. So many, thousands and thousands and thousands of them. They're all sitting there. And Rama first tells Vibhishana and Hanuman to go and bring her in a palanquin. So they do that. They're bringing. When that occurs, when they see this person coming in, Rama looks at all these monkeys and they can't see her, right? It's a closed palanquin. So Rama immediately orders, no, ask Sita to get down and walk. Let her walk slowly so they can see. So as she walks, all these Vanarams, they're all seeing, right? And when they're seeing her, the first thing is they're all talking something amongst each other. They don't know what they're talking. And then Angada is is a spy. That's how it is in Kishkinda. So Sugrivan sends him. He goes and finds out what's going on, what they're talking, comes back. He says, Rama, it's really little embarrassing for me to tell you this, but the thing that they're talking about is Sita is considered to be such a beauty, and we can see that she's really beautiful. She's got great smile, she's got great eyes, she's got beautiful, body, and she's really walking so very nicely. But she doesn't even have she doesn't even have a little bit of tail that she can use to kiss when she's happy. So that's the Vanura's anubhavam of Sita Devi towards him. So anyway, Hanuman comes in and does this, he doesn't find her there. Then he realizes my ahankara needs to go away. That's when the first shlokam of his comes out. Namostu Ramaya Salakshmanaya, Devejya Tasya Janakatmajaye, Namostu Rudrendra Yamanilebhya, Namostu Chandragni, Marudganebhya. So essentially, he starts really praying to Rama and Sita and everybody else to show themselves. Appana Perumal Kampa. Nambala it won't happen. In fact, then he even, as he starts talking to Sita Devi, he says, it's not my valor, it's not my power why I came. I came here because I had the Kanayari, I had the Modaram of Rama. Anybody could have flown. Anybody that had this could have flown. It's not because of me, you know that very well. So anyway, that sequence actually happens.